Hello, David Roach, Independent Strategy, and of course, Quantum Economics. I want to talk to you about the hidden war for US dominance, which is implicit in the way that crypto assets, cryptocurrency, central bank digital currencies, stablecoin, etc., are actually conceived, and their architecture, their mechanics create a war which we know is there, but we have a problem actually saying, well, what is this war about? Well, the first is the known war, which is not the battle between the US and anywhere else, but between cryptocurrency, the private sector digital currency, and the state version, which is the central bank digital currency, the CBDC. Now, private currency, cryptocurrency today, of all sorts and kinds, are equal to a market capitalization of approximately $2 trillion US. So rather a lot, not to be sneezed at. Now, what is the war about? Well, the war as we see it between cryptocurrency and the state is for power. Wars are always for power. This one is for power. The state does not want a private sector currency to replace its dominance through the central bank of fiat currencies. Now, of course, for the good of all, the state does not want cryptocurrency to introduce volatility or systematic risk into the financial system, which they pretend that it would, unless it is properly regulated in the West or done away with in China. We will come back to this question of regulation because it's key. Okay, so we all know there's a war going on in which every respectable politician, the BIS, central bankers, current and past, are dumping in a nuclear fashion on cryptocurrency as a major risk to unwary individual investors and indeed to the financial system as a whole. What they don't say, of course, so openly is that it's actually a major threat to the political power of the incumbents, be they central banks or governments. But that risk, of course, is one that is not uppermost because, of course, we all know that politicians only exist for the greater good of the masses, but don't worry, it's there anyway. So we can do away with that. We know all about that. There is, and I scratch my head here because I've been thinking about it a lot, and it's actually fascinating. There is another war within that war, like a Russian doll within a Russian doll within a Russian doll, not seeking, of course, to malign the Russians, who are wonderful and pacific people. Let us talk about stablecoin in the cryptocurrency ecosystem. Now, what is stablecoin? For a start, let's see what it's worth. It's worth 120 billion, and I just told you that cryptocurrency in total is worth about 2 trillion. So stablecoin is not huge as yet, but it's growing, and in the last year or two has grown by 4 times. Now, why do people like stablecoin? They like it because it provides stability. It doesn't go up and down like Bitcoin. It's not volatile. And secondly, it's transactable. It's much more like cash. Let us think for a second about why stablecoin is stable. It is stable because it is pegged to an underlying asset which the issuer of stablecoin has on the asset side of its balance sheet, and then issues stablecoin against it, but only on a one-for-one basis. In other words, every single stablecoin is supposedly backed by the asset which is supposed to ensure its stability. Let us think about that for a minute. All stablecoins so far, oddly enough, are in US dollars. That probably says something about US innovation, but there's no reason why it should be. It could be in Swiss francs or euros or Japanese yen or anything, but they aren't. At the moment, all stablecoins are US dollar assets. Now, I said to you, the reason a stablecoin is called a stablecoin is because the issuing entity, let us say a private sector company in all cases, has an asset side of its balance sheet and a liability side of its balance sheet. The liability side of the balance sheet is composed of stablecoin, which you and I can go and buy and transact in the marketplace or on our favorite app. The asset side is made up, and I made a list, predominantly, and I mean by far, of the whole of the 120 billion US dollars stablecoin universe. The assets are made up of US commercial paper. They're made up of US dollar cash, various forms of US treasuries and corporate bonds, and CDs. And one particular stablecoin, which strikes me as rather backed by something that is not terribly stable, is backed by the cryptocurrency Ethereum and by a wrapped form of Bitcoin. Now, the name of that particular stable currency is DAI, DAI, which in Chinese, and it's not Chinese, it's American, means big. I think that does not sound to me like stable coin. The other funds I looked at, whether it's Tether or USD Coin or Binance USD, all of them use the currency, the assets such as US dollar cash, US dollar bonds, etc., which I listed. Now, here comes the interesting bit. If you consider the two social political models of China and the US, you will know that the US is an odd and innovative place where the infrastructure seems to hold together with elastoplast and sticky tape, but it works. And China, or to take another highly organized state model, is actually a centralized hegemonic power which delivers in a unified political sense, but not at all like the fragmented delivery, which delivers quality product, no doubt about it, of the US economy. So there is, and if you go to France and you take a train from the airport to the south of France, you are on an absolutely superb state-sponsored TGV, train grande vitesse, which is unrivaled, really, anywhere else, including China or Japan in the world, but which is entirely delivered by the state. If you think of the contrasting journey in the US, you arrive at Kennedy and you lurch your way in on something which maybe a bus or maybe the underground into the center of New York, and then you have to fight your way through Penn Central and get another rickety train which goes tickety-tack down to wherever you're going to go, wherever it is. Now, the delivery systems are, in a sense, symbolic of the type of economy we're dealing with. One is the centralized hegemonic power, which is the unified state in France, the absolute power of the Chinese Communist Party. And what I'm not saying is one is better than the other. I'm saying this contrasts the United States, which is essentially a fragmented system, but which delivers goods. Now, the US delivers the goods not because the federal government controls everything, as we can see from what went on in COVID or what is going on in numerous areas in the United States, such as climate protection. The federal government does not deliver the goods. It's all done at state and local government levels. But what the US government does deliver deliver is proper regulation of markets. Whether you like what the markets are doing, whether you agree with the objectives and the policies being implemented in those markets, that is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about, the US controls through regulation. And what will happen is this. We come back now to stablecoin and we apply the model of the state. The hegemonic power of China will simply outlaw Bitcoin, crypto mining, stablecoin in US dollars will be against the law. And that is what is happening in China. What is happening in China is that China is at the forefront globally of the development of central bank digital currency with the e-yuan, which is already on a pilot scheme being trialed, which is way ahead of the Fed or the European Central Bank or the Bank of Japan, God help us all, or anywhere else really, except for some rather, not odd, but Caribbean states or Latin American states, and now Nigeria, which have a very good reason to replace their own corrupted currencies. But in the main, you can see that the Fed is way behind and China is way ahead when it comes to developing central bank digital currency. But China will not allow any other form of digital currency or asset to exist. It requires the monopoly of the state and the party, because through those digital assets, through the central bank digital currency, it will seek to centralize the data, your data, if you happen to be Chinese and watching this, and it will seek to make sure that the system is stable, which is an admirable aim. But in the main, there will be no alternative to China's central bank digital currency, the e-yuan, because China does not want any diversification of power away from the Chinese Communist Party towards private sector players. The US is totally different. The jungle, which it is fast becoming of stablecoin, and indeed I can extend that to cryptocurrencies in general, private sector cryptocurrencies, will produce frauds, collapses, panics, volatility, but above all, it will introduce regulation, because in the end, the US will not seek to outlaw these currencies. It will succeed to bless the innovation and the economic benefits that come with the evolution and the savage market evolution, the Darwinian evolution of successful stable coins and cryptocurrencies. Think for a minute. If the US proceeds with regulation to allow the successful stable coins, which are backed by the US dollar and which are exchangeable into the US dollar, because the currency which issues these stable coins holds these US dollars and only issues the stable coin on, let us assume, a one-to-one basis. What has the US created? It has actually created a digital US dollar without ever going near the central bank, which may be part and parcel of the regulation, but is not the issuer. Essentially, therefore, you are faced with a global battle between two concepts of digital assets. One is the state-centric, hegemonic central bank digital currency of China, which will also be adopted in other areas of the world, not simply the Chinese version, but homegrown versions. And in the other corner of the ring is the regulated, successful because in a Darwinian sense it succeeded in markets, but it is regulated stablecoin of the United States, which will essentially be an e-dollar, a digital dollar, which of course will be lapped up by the world, not only by US citizens, but by citizens of other countries who will like the e-dollar because they like the US dollar as a reserve asset. So the bottom line of this video, or podcast, depending on what you're watching, is that there is a war within the war. There is a known war between central bank digital currency and cryptocurrency, which is worldwide, which is the principle of government fighting the loss of its power. And of course, the protection of citizens from instability in the financial system. But there is an equally important war within that war. As I said in the beginning, the Russian doll within the Russian doll within the Russian doll. And that war is between two concepts of cryptocurrency. One is the regulated US dollar cryptocurrency, which will become an e-dollar and a global reserve asset and transaction currency for millions and millions of people, without the US really trying or having a great global plan to achieve this. And the other is the central bank digital currencies, which will be dominated by the state powers of powerful states, in particular by China. That war is going on. It is the real route which the US will take towards developing successful cryptocurrencies. The amazing thing about it is that the central bank, the US Fed, apart from being a regulator, of which there are 2 or 3 in the United States, has really got nothing to do with it. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give the channel a like and subscribe. Goodbye, good night, and do not turn off the lights.